Alyssa Williams was full of life, the kind of woman who lit up every room she walked into. She worked hard, loved deeply, and trusted easily. At 27, she had dreams that stretched far beyond the quiet streets of her small hometown. She wasn't perfect, no one is, but those closest to her could never have imagined the secret she carried, or how that secret would ultimately lead to her violent end. On a warm summer evening, Alyssa sent one last text to a friend. It was brief, almost cryptic: "I'm finally going to do it. He needs to know." Hours later, she was gone. Days later, she was found, lifeless, discarded in a shallow grave. What could drive someone to take such a promising life and end it so brutally? Was it love, jealousy, desperation, or something much more complicated? This is the story of a hidden relationship, a shocking betrayal, and the chilling truth that unraveled it all. By the time we reach the end, the details will leave you questioning everything about trust, loyalty, and the length some people will go to keep their secrets buried. Alyssa Williams was the kind of person you'd remember. At 27 years old, she had a radiant smile, an infectious laugh, and an energy that drew people toward her. Friends described her as fiercely independent, but also as someone who loved deeply and gave everything to the people she cared about. Living in the small, picturesque town of Fair Haven, she worked at a local marketing firm, often staying late to perfect every detail of her projects. She had big dreams, ones that she believed were finally within her grasp. But Alyssa also carried a secret. A secret so heavy it started to seep into every part of her life. She was in a relationship with a man she couldn't openly love. A man whose promises of a future together came with conditions she was no longer willing to accept. That man was Dante Miller. At 35, Dante was known around town as a smooth talker. He worked in sales, often boasting about his ability to close any deal. To most, he seemed like the perfect family man, married to Teresa Miller, his high school sweetheart, and father to a young daughter. Dante's charm and easygoing personality made him well liked, but it was this same charm that masked the truth about the double life he was leading. For nearly a year, Alyssa and Dante had been entangled in an affair. What began as stolen moments and whispered promises turned into a relationship full of complications, lies, and deceit. In the weeks leading up to Alyssa's disappearance, those closest to her started to notice subtle but unsettling changes. Normally bubbly and outgoing, she had become distant and preoccupied. Friends described how her phone never left her side, how she would glance at it nervously during conversations, her fingers hovering over the screen before hurriedly locking it again. Cryptic messages would flash across her screen, ones she would never share but seemed to leave her more anxious than reassured. Dante, meanwhile, was exhibiting his own signs of strain. Known for his easy charm and confident demeanor, he was now restless and distracted. At family gatherings, he would step out for long phone calls, returning with an unconvincing smile and an excuse about work. At home, his wife, Teresa, noticed that he was more withdrawn, more irritable. To her, it felt like there was a growing distance between them, but she couldn't quite put her finger on why. As the cracks in their secret began to widen, Alyssa confided in her best friend, Melanie, during what would become one of their final conversations. Over coffee at a quiet cafe, Alyssa admitted the toll the relationship was taking on her. "I can't keep living like this," she said. "I want more. I deserve more. I'm tired of being the other woman." When Melanie asked her what she planned to do, Alyssa's response was resolute: "I'm going to tell her. Teresa deserves to know the truth." Melanie later revealed that Alyssa seemed confident but also nervous about the confrontation. She didn't share the details of when or where she planned to speak to Teresa, only that it would happen soon. For Alyssa, it was a chance to finally move forward with her life, a way to demand the commitment she believed Dante owed her. But for Dante, it was a threat to everything he had built. Friends of his would later claim he had been trying to end the affair, that he wanted to salvage his marriage. Yet Alyssa's journal, found in her apartment after her disappearance, told a very different story. In one entry dated just days before her death, she wrote, "He says he loves me, but he's scared. I told him I can't wait forever. He promised we'd be together. I just have to remind him of that." That journal became a critical piece of evidence in the case, offering a glimpse into the strained dynamics of their relationship. It painted a picture of a woman desperate for honesty and a man torn between two lives, one he wanted to keep and one he couldn't let go of. The days that followed were marked by growing tension. Alyssa sent a series of texts to Dante, asking to meet and talk. Neighbors reported seeing his car parked outside her apartment on more than one occasion, staying for hours late into the night. Then, on the evening of August 19th, Alyssa sent one final message to Melanie, "I'm doing it tonight. Wish me luck." That was the last time anyone heard from her. When Alyssa didn't show up for work the next morning, her co-workers assumed she was running late. But as the hours ticked by, their concern grew. Calls and texts went unanswered, and by the end of the day, her closest friends knew something was wrong. They contacted her family, who immediately went to her apartment, only to find it eerily still. The door was locked. The lights were off. Her car was parked outside. But Alyssa was nowhere to be found. Then, a chilling clue emerged. A text message was sent from Alyssa's phone late that night, hours after she was last seen. It read, "I'm okay. Just need some time to myself." To some, it offered a glimmer of hope. But to those who knew her, it raised more questions than answers. The wording felt off. The timing didn't make sense. And the Alyssa they knew would never leave without telling someone where she was going. As police began their investigation, conflicting testimonies only added to the mystery. Dante claimed he hadn't seen Alyssa that night, but surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed his car driving in the direction of her apartment around the time she disappeared. Meanwhile, Teresa, his wife, insisted she had no idea about the affair, though friends later admitted she had confided suspicions to them weeks earlier. What really happened on the night of August 19th? Did Alyssa confront Teresa? Did she meet with Dante? Or did someone else entirely know about their affair and decide to intervene? The deeper investigators dug, the more tangled the web became. For 5 agonizing days, Alyssa Williams was missing. Her family and friends held on to hope that she might return, that the cryptic texts sent from her phone meant she was safe, even if she needed time to herself. But on the morning of August 24th, that hope was shattered. A jogger in the woods outside Fair Haven made a grim discovery, a bloodied scarf partially buried under a pile of leaves. Just a few feet away, disturbed soil led investigators to Alyssa's body, hastily buried in a shallow grave. She was wrapped in a tarp. The autopsy later revealed she had fought desperately for her life before she was butchered like beef into 40 chunks. She had so many dreams, Alyssa's mother tearfully shared in a recorded interview. She wanted to travel the world, to get married, to start her own business. She trusted people, maybe too much. And now, she's gone, because someone decided her life didn't matter as much as their secrets. With the discovery of Alyssa's body, the investigation shifted from a missing persons case to a homicide. Forensic evidence found at the scene painted a chilling picture. Strands of hair clutched in Alyssa's hand pointed to a struggle. Dirt embedded under her fingernails suggested she had tried to claw her way free. And most damning of all, DNA found on the scarf and tarp led investigators straight to Dante Miller. At first, Dante maintained his innocence, insisting he hadn't seen Alyssa in weeks. But his alibi began to crumble when surveillance footage from the night of her disappearance placed his car near the wooded area where her body was found. Phone records revealed late-night calls and texts between him and Alyssa in the hours before her death, including one ominous message from Dante, "We need to end this." When confronted with the evidence, Dante's demeanor changed. He admitted to meeting Alyssa that night but claimed their argument had been verbal, not physical. He insisted he left her unharmed and had no idea what happened to her afterward. But the evidence told a different story. As investigators closed in on Dante, a shocking twist emerged. During a search of the Miller home, police uncovered a hidden journal belonging to Teresa, Dante's wife. In it, she detailed her suspicions about the affair, writing about sleepless nights, growing anger, and a chilling entry dated just weeks before Alyssa's death: "If I can't have him, no one else will." This discovery raised a troubling question: was Dante the only one with a motive to kill Alyssa? Or had Teresa, fueled by jealousy and rage, played a role in her murder? With two suspects and mounting evidence, the investigation took a startling turn when new text messages were recovered from Alyssa's phone. One message, sent just hours before her death, read, "I'm coming clean tonight. Meet me at the park." It was unclear whether the message was meant for Dante, Teresa, or someone else entirely. Meanwhile, neighbors came forward with conflicting stories. Some claimed Teresa had confronted Alyssa weeks before her death, warning her to stay away from Dante. Others insisted Dante had been planning to leave Teresa and move in with Alyssa. These testimonies, combined with the forensic evidence, painted a tangled web of deceit, jealousy, and betrayal. Just when it seemed the case couldn't get any more complex, police discovered a burner phone hidden in Dante's car. Messages on the phone revealed a chilling exchange between Dante and Teresa the night Alyssa disappeared. "Dante, it's done. No turning back now. Teresa, she got what she deserved. No one threatens my family." This bombshell raised even more questions. Was Teresa complicit in the crime? Had she orchestrated the murder to protect her family? Or was Dante manipulating her to cover his tracks? With each new revelation, the case became darker and more twisted. As police pieced together the events of that fateful night, it became clear that Alyssa's death wasn't a random act of violence, it was the result of calculated decisions made by people she trusted. The only question that remained was, who struck the fatal blow? Was it Dante, desperate to protect his double life? Teresa, driven by jealousy and betrayal? Or were they both complicit in silencing Alyssa forever? As the investigation continued to unfold, the pressure on Dante and Teresa grew unbearable. The mounting evidence, combined with the revelation of their toxic relationship and mutual involvement, left no room for doubt. But the question remained, would they both be held accountable for Alyssa's brutal murder? On the eve of their trial, Dante's defense team made a shocking decision. With all the evidence stacked against them, both Dante and Teresa would stand trial together. It was clear that the prosecution would focus on the brutal details of Alyssa's death, hoping to prove that both defendants had played an active role in the crime. But the prosecution had a problem: there was no physical evidence tying Teresa directly to the murder scene. Teresa, in a moment of desperation, claimed she had no part in the murder, she had only been consumed by jealousy and fear. But as the trial continued, new revelations came to light. A series of phone calls between Teresa and Dante, made just hours before Alyssa's death, revealed a chilling coordination, a clear understanding between them that the murder needed to happen to protect their secret lives. The turning point in the trial came when the defense team attempted to argue that Dante was solely responsible for Alyssa's murder, but the prosecution swiftly countered. A forensic expert testified that Teresa's fingerprints had been found on the burner phone, a piece of evidence that tied her to the crime in a way that even she couldn't deny. In the final days of the trial, it became apparent that the case was nearing its conclusion. Both Dante and Teresa's defense were unraveling under the weight of the overwhelming evidence. And then came the bombshell: Teresa, in a moment of extreme emotional vulnerability, confessed to her involvement in the murder, but only in part. She claimed she had been driven to it by Dante, that she had not intended for Alyssa to die, but that she had known what was going to happen and hadn't stopped it. Teresa's confession was both a relief and a curse for the prosecution. While it confirmed her involvement, it also allowed her defense to argue that she had not directly carried out the murder. Dante, on the other hand, continued to insist that the act was his own, driven by a need to cover up his affair and protect his family from the truth. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached their verdict. Dante Miller was found guilty of first-degree murder, while Teresa was convicted of accessory to murder and conspiracy. Their crimes, once hidden in a cloud of lies and betrayal, had been laid bare for all to see. Alyssa's family, though deeply scarred by the loss, found some measure of peace knowing that justice had been served. For her mother, the pain of her daughter's murder would never fully heal, but she could now begin to mourn without the haunting question of who was responsible hanging over her. The case of Alyssa Williams was a tragedy, a brutal murder that tore apart not just a young woman's life, but the lives of everyone who loved her. But in the end, the truth came out. Alyssa's death was not just the result of one man's rage, but the twisted consequence of a dangerous web of lies, jealousy, and betrayal. And though the world may never understand why it happened, one thing is certain: justice was served. What do you think? Did Dante's wife, Teresa, know more than she let on? Was she the mastermind behind Alyssa's brutal murder, or was she just as much a victim of her husband's manipulation? Could this tragedy have been avoided if either of them had made a different choice? Could Alyssa's life have been saved if they had been honest with themselves and each other? This case reminds us that sometimes, the darkest secrets hide behind the most familiar faces. Relationships twisted by deceit and envy can turn lethal, and the consequences, devastating. But what can we learn from this? Could the warning signs have been spotted earlier? And most importantly, how much of this could have been avoided? If you want more cases like this, subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss an episode. Join us as we uncover the truth behind the darkest stories and unravel the secrets that others want to keep hidden.